Okay, welcome back to part 2 video guys. Today we will fully focus on actual SPM Addmaths paper 2 and we're gonna cover in this video from the first questions all the way to question 7, okay, which is for section 8. Now let's look at the question together. Let us start with diagram 1 shows a sector BAC with center A and sector COD with center O. P lies on the straight line OD, and then it says it is given that the area of sector BAC is 113.4 cm squared, OA is 1/2 AC, and CP is 7.74 cm. Find the length of AC in centimeter. Your pi, you're gonna use 3.142. Okay, now first of all, they give us the area of sector BAC. So BAC, which is this side of the area, I'm going to form an equation out of this area of sector BAC first in order to get the AC. So this is question 1a. We write down the formula of area of sector, which is 1/2 r square theta. I think in Malay is j square theta because the r stand for radius, and then equal it to 113.4. And at the same time, right, we want to fill up the theta over here because obviously we are not given the radius in this diagram, right? There is no radius given here. So to get the theta over here, it is actually straight away from the question itself, 2.8. So 1/2, 1/2 r squared, fill up the theta, 2.8 in radian, and then equal it to 113.4. Now your r squared is equal to, move this 2 to the right, 113.4 divided by 1/2 times 2.8. And if you want to eliminate the square, you want to move it to the right, you get r equal to square root of 113.4 divided by 1/2 times 2.8. Okay, you're going to end up with an answer which is 9 cm. So that means your radius over here is actually 9 cm for the semicircle. Alright, for the semicircle. So once you get this radius right, how do you actually get the length of AC? So to get the length of AC, AC is actually the radius of the semicircle as well because the center is A. So when you got it the radius, which is 9 cm, which I just shown you A to B, then obviously you're gonna get the AC as well. Okay, AC is the radius. So you write it down, AB equal to AC and then equal to 9 cm. So that is where you get your first part of the question, A1. Let's look at A2. Show that the theta is actually 0.611 when rounded to 3 significant figures. Okay, so we have a theta over here, which is at the angle COP, right? COP. So the theta radian here, they want you to show that it is actually 0.611. So how do we do that, okay? Now, we are given OA is 1/2 AC and CP is 7.74. Let us label down 7.74 cm. Okay, what do we actually do it with this OA equal to 1/2 AC? Let me just jot down here. Okay, OA is 1/2 AC. Okay, so that means OA is 1/2 times 9 because AC is 9 cm, which will give us 9/2, which is 4.5 cm. So we knew that from O to A, right, is actually 4.5. 4.5 cm. Okay, to get our entire line OC, OC is actually 4.5, and then you want to add it back with the AC length, which is 9. Okay, in total, you will end up at 13.5 cm. Okay, now you got your OC, and then you are also given P to C, 7.74. So if you want to get this angle here, you must also think about the sine cos tangent that you learned previously. Now, sine cos tangent means you are given the opposite value, because this is opposite, and then over here, which is the line of O to C, right, is actually your hypotenuse. So among the sine cos tangent, the most suitable to use here is sine theta. because sine theta will be your opposite divided by hypotenuse. So opposite is 7.74. Your hypotenuse is 13.5. To get your theta, you want to do shift sine, which is the anti-sine, 7.74 divided by 13.5. Okay, and then you're going to end up with an answer, but the answer here, right, it's in degree form, and they wanted this theta, right, it's in radian form. So you want to convert it into radian. I would suggest you to key in your calculator. Once you get this answer, you want to multiply straight away with 3.142 over 180, because you're going to convert it into radian form. So you will end up with 0.611 as your final answer. Okay, so because they ask you to show, right, you want to write it down shown here. Okay, maybe some student might ask, teacher or sir, how do we know that the answer that we get is actually in degree form but not in radian? Because whatever we are dealing with right now, it's actually in degree, it's not in radian. If it's radian, right, you couldn't perform sin cos tangent calculation because it doesn't match with the policy inside the sin cos and tangent. Okay, so that is how you secure your first 4 marks for question A1 and 2, and we're going to move on with question B. Question B says they want us to find the perimeter in cm of the whole diagram. So perimeter of the whole diagram, let me just erase this. So that means I have to add up here A to O, O to D, CD, and the arc here, B to C. Alright, that will be my perimeter. So write it down. This is B here. Okay, perimeter in cm of the whole diagram. Now, perimeter equation is, okay, we will write it down whatever line that we need. Okay, first of all, we need AB. Okay, we take AB and then we plus BC. Okay, we want to plus from A to O as well, and then we also have O to D, and one more is CD. Okay, so do we have A to B or not? Yes, we do have. So this is 9. Do we have B to C? Obviously, we don't have B to C because that's the arc of the semicircle yet. It's okay. We leave it blank here. Plus A to O. Do we have A to O? Yes, we do. 4.5. All right, and then O to D. Do we have O to D? O to D is actually 13.5, but do we actually have O to D 13.5? Let's see. We have OC, OD. Okay, yeah. Why is it OD 13.5? Is because this is actually the same as O to C. Okay, because there is another sector over here. See, let me put it in blue. Yeah. Okay, just now I just forget about it. So there is another sector here where they tell you that C, O, and D is another sector, and therefore your O to C, right, is the same length as O to D, which is 13.5. Here, that you just got it, 13.5. Okay, so OD is 13.5, and CD is not given, all right, because CD is actually the arc of the sector COD. So that means, right, we have to work on the arc length of the BC and the CD. So to work on the arc length, okay, we use the formula of S equal to R theta. S is the arc length. So I will look for BC arc first. Okay, so the length of arc of BC is R theta. Okay, and the theta will be, the radius is 13.5. Oh, sorry. For BC, your radius will be 9, and then 2.8. Yep. Okay, so 9 times 2.8, you will end up with the answer 25.2 cm. All right, and then the arc for CD, yeah, the arc for CD, which means the radius is here, 13.5. multiply by the theta. The theta that you just found in radian is 0.611. So 0.611, and there you go. You will end up with another answer, 8.2485. 2485 cm. Okay, so you want to fill up this two question mark, which is CD and BC, and that is how you're going to get your final answer. Let me just put this down a bit. Okay, so we can complete the equation here. 9 plus BC is 25.2. This is 4.5, 13.5, and 8.2485. Okay, everything here is in cm, so don't forget the unit here. And then you will end up with 60.4485 cm. Okay, that is actually how you're going to get your perimeter of the whole diagram. There you go. So there will be another 3 marks. So for the first part A is 4 marks. The part B is going to be 3 marks. In total, 7 marks for the first question. This is Form 5 Chapter 1 Circular Measure. Alright, now we're going to move on with the second question. Here we go. Second question, it's about Form 4 Chapter 2, which is quadratic function. Yeah. Now, let me enlarge a bit of the question. Okay, it says the quadratic function f(x) equal to 3x squared plus 3px plus p such that, okay, let me just pull this a bit. Okay, such that p is a constant, hence has a minimum value of -1. Using the method of completing the square, find the values of p. Alright, now maybe I should write it at here straight away. Let me just do it that way then. Okay, now if I want to get p, values of p, using the method of completing the square, right, this is how what I would do. I will write it down the equation. Let me use it in green. Fx equal to 3x squared plus 3px plus p. I want to ensure that my a value is actually +1. So that will be factorizing the 3 out of the equation. I get x squared plus px plus p over 3. Okay, then my way of doing it is I will write down 3, put down a big bracket here, open up 2 brackets square. In between it's going to be minus, and then pull down the p over 3, which is whatever value that doesn't attach to x. So that will be p over 3. Close the bracket. Now I want to fill up the first bracket by making x squared become x, plus sign, put it back plus, but the p value has to be divided by 2. Okay, and then you want to pull this p over 2. Remember, just pull the number alone. It doesn't matter it's positive or negative value. You only pull the numbers, right, or the term over there. So the next step is you want to continue here is 3 bracket x plus p over 2 squared. You want to expand this out. This is p squared over 4 and then plus p over 3. Okay, and then the next thing you want to do is to bring this 3 back to those equations. So 3 times x plus p over 2 squared. Okay, 3 times negative p squared over 4, we get negative 3p squared over 4 plus, this is p here because 3 and 3 cancel. Okay, now this is our completing the square final outlook. All right, now once we did this, right, we still couldn't get the values of p yet because we are not done yet, of course, but the question says minimum value. Now you have to understand what is actually minimum value here and what does it has to do with completing the square. Because when you perform completing the square, right, technically you are doing vertex form as a result. Okay, you are trying to convert a general form into a vertex form. So vertex form gave us an information whereby the curve, right, it's either smiling or sad face, right? And then at the bottom or top here, we call this maximum point or minimum point. Okay, and of course, maximum point, it has an x and y. Minimum point also has an x and y. Now, when he tell me that a minimum value of -1, right, they are telling me that this value here, the y value here is -1. But what does it has to do with the vertex form? Because this part of the equation tells you the minimum value, which is the y. And inside the bracket here will tell you everything about the x. So you want to understand that from general form to vertex form, right, it gives you a certain information about the quadratic. All right, and this is the most important part because most of the exam question, right, they will ask you this kind of way. So you have to understand what is minimum value. Okay, so minimum value is -1. That means I can take this equation, -3p squared over 4 plus p equally to -1. That is how I could potentially get my p value. Okay, so my very first step is I would actually consider times 4 for the whole equation. I get -3p squared plus 4p equal to -4. It seems like a quadratic equation. I'm going to move this to the left. So -3p squared plus 4p and then plus 4 equal to 0. Now you're going to key in your calculator, key in your a value, -3, b value is 4, c value is 4. You will end up with two answers from your calculator. P is 2 and P is -2 over 3. Reverse to the back, P minus 2, and this is 3P plus 2, equally to 0. Okay? And so that will be your possible values of P. You're gonna leave it as two answers because the question also highlight that this is gonna be a plural, like double answers, more than two answers for P. So P equal to 2 and -2 over 3 will be acceptable in this case. Okay, so that is how you get it done for 2a, 4 marks, and 2b. Sketch the graph of fx using the largest value of p from a. Now largest value means the greater value. So you're gonna use your p equal to 2. So that means you're gonna sketch an equation where this is fx equal to 3x squared plus, okay, if your p value is 2, right? So that will be 3 times 2, right? See at the top here, 3 times 2. So 3 times 2, this is going to be 6. So 6x and then plus 2. So this is exactly the quadratic function that you're going to sketch. Okay, but I'm out of space here. So I will probably move this to the left side and minimize it first. Okay, and then I'm going to show you the sketching of this quadratic equation. Okay, so first of all, I noticed that the y value or the c value here is my y-intercept, which is 2, and then my a value is greater than 0. It's going to be a smiling face. Next thing is I want to go and see what is my minimum points, the coordinate, right? The coordinate here, taking out this one, right? Negative p over 2, which means negative bracket. P value is actually the value that we found just now, which is 2 here. So -2 divided by 2, you get -1. Okay, so that means my minimum point is at -1 and then -1. That will be my minimum point. Okay, and then what about my roots here? What is my roots? Roots means the value that cuts through my x-axis. Okay, I go and press my calculator by key in A, B, and C value. You key in 3, 6, and 2, you're going to get 2 of the value here. But of course, the value here is not that nice. You're going to get decimal answer. So you will write down negative 0.0.4226 and x2 will be negative 1.5774. Because this is just a sketching, so don't worry about those working steps. All right, they will actually give you mark based on the accuracy of the graph that you sketch. So we want to make sure that our graph, okay, let me just sketch it here. Okay, we are more towards the negative side. So I'm going to do more slightly inclined to the left side. Okay, this is my y here. And there is the roots value, negative 0.4. I assume it's around here. I do it negative 0.4 and negative 1.5. Let's say here. Okay, and I also have my minimum point at -1, -1. So -1, let's say, will be here. Okay, I put here -1, and over here will be my -1 for y value. Okay, what else do I missed out? Okay, I could have this as well, which is the y-intercept 2 here. And I want to make sure that my graph looks like a sad face curve. Not sad face, smiling face curve. Okay, so there are a few of coordinates you must pass through, which is here, these two roots, and also the minimum point here. So your entire graph will look something like this. Okay, passing through the... Alright, that is how you're going to sketch your graph. You may label down fx equal to 3x squared plus 6x plus 2. And that is the end of total 6 marks for Form 4 Chapter 2. Okay, I hope you got the idea now for 2a and b. And then we're going to move on with 3a. 3a, given that p power x minus 2 times, so this one dot here means multiply, okay? It says p power x minus 2 times q power x plus 2 equal to bracket pq 2x, and then show that pq bracket x is actually q over p power 2. Okay, so where do we start? Right, we start with this first. Okay, let me just write it down. P power x minus 2 times q power x plus 2, okay, equal to pq 2x. Now this is from the question, right? So where do we start? Okay, here's how I'm gonna do this. I will write it as this is p x q x. I'm gonna leave the 2 outside. Okay, I'm gonna leave the 2 outside. And as for my left hand side here, I will break this down. So how do I break this down is that I will write it this way. P power x times p power negative 2 times q power x times q power 2. So if you want to write it in the form of brackets, right, it's totally okay. So you can actually put it this way. P power negative 2 is 1 over p2, okay, multiply with p power x, and then multiply with q power 2, and then this is q power x. Okay, and then this one equal to, you can write it here, p power x q power x bracket 2. Okay, next thing you want to do is you want to move this p power x and q power x, right, because they are multiplication relationship. So you will want to move this to the right, so it becomes p power x q power x square over, okay, because this is p power x times q power x, right? I will write it down here, p power x times q power x bracket this thing. On my left hand side, I will only left with what? Only left with 1 over p square and also q square. Imagine if q square multiplied with 1 over p square, what do you get? You get q square over p square. That is what you're going to get on the left hand side. We are very near to the final answer now because you have double of the pxqx and you have a single pxqx at the bottom. You can cancel this, so you only remain 1. Next is q square over p square, right? We can also rewrite as q over p square. Okay, now if you look closely based on this equation, right, the pqx is actually pxqx. So you have actually done the work already. You just have to write here pxqx equal to, let me just do it this way, q over p square. I'm going to reform this one as pq bracket x equal to q over p square. And then that is how I shown that the bracket pqx is actually q over p square. 3 marks. Okay, so job done. That's number 3a. We're going to move on with 3b. Okay, so 3b here, it says express k over 4 minus cert 7 plus cert 28 in the form of p plus q cert 7 in terms of k, such that p and q are constant. Okay, so what we do here is we want to make sure that we end up at an answer in terms of k, right? So we start from this equation. K over 4 minus cert 7 plus cert 28. Okay, now cert 28 itself, right, is actually 2 cert 7. If you try to press calculator, you're going to get 2 cert 7. Let me just write it down. This is 2 cert 7. You can try to press your calculator. Cert 28 is actually 2 cert 7 in the simplest form I'm saying. So next thing is I want to make this two same denominator. So to make them same denominator, you always remember there's a 1 at the bottom here. So when you multiply to make it same denominator, which is 4 minus cert 7, 4 minus, oops, 4 minus cert 7. Okay, so you can combine two terms into a single term. That would help you in terms of simplifying the whole equation here. So k plus, all right, 2 cert 7 times 4, you will end up with 8 cert 7. And then the 2 cert 7, if you multiply with cert 7, you're going to end up with minus, this is 2 times 7. Because cert 7 times cert 7, you get back 7 only. So that is what you're going to get. And then over. This is 4 minus cert 7. Okay, so k plus 8 cert 7 minus 14 over 4 minus cert 7. Okay, what do we do next? Next thing, you want to consider conjugate. Conjugate. Okay, some student might ask, sir, why do we need to do conjugate? Because our cert is still exists in our denominator. This is not the most rationalized or the most simplest form yet. Okay, because our form here, it's not the same as this one. So we have to still do all the way until we can actually get this format. Okay, which is the question one. So conjugate is you want to multiply 4 plus cert 7, 4 plus cert 7. Everything will be the same, just the sign here you have to change it. That is conjugate, not colgate. Okay, so once you write it down this, okay, you want to do it slowly, one by one. Okay, so that will be k multiplied with 4 and then k multiplied with cert 7. You get 4k here. Okay, and then you get k cert 7, and then you want to take the 8 cert 7 multiply 4 and cert 7 as well. So when you multiply 4, this is 4 8 32 cert 7. This is plus sign, and then 8 cert 7 times cert 7, you still get positive, but this is 8 times 7, right? Okay, one more is negative 14 multiplied with 4, you get minus 56. And then negative 14 times cert 7, of course you get negative 14 cert 7 over, this is 4 minus, all right, this one, right, let me just write it back. Okay, this one is like bracket multiply bracket things. So to do this, right, this is actually 4 times 4, you get 16. Right, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times cert 7, 4 cert 7. Then negative cert 7 times 4, you get this. Negative cert 7 times cert 7, you get negative, just the 7 alone. All right, just the 7 alone. So at the bottom here, right, these two can cancel. So 16 minus 7 is what you have at the bottom. 9 here. Okay, and then at the top, right, it seems complicated, but it's okay. As you can see, this is 8 times 7, 56. 56 minus 56, so the number no more. All right, no more numbers here. So you only left with, this is cert 7 and cert 7, right? So you can add them both. 32 plus 4, 32 minus 14, because this is minus, right? So 32 minus 14 is 18. I'm going to write it at the back here, 18 cert 7. And then at the beginning, we have 4k plus k cert 7. All right, this is what we have left. And it seems like we can't do anything more. So what we're going to do here is we can actually consider factor the cert 7 out. So that will be 4k plus, this is k plus 18, and then cert 7 over 9. The last step is you want to make it as 4 over 9k plus k plus 18 over 9 and then cert 7. Because you want to get exact the format, request by question, p plus q cert 7. So what is your p and what is your q? Your p is 4 over 9k. Your q will be k plus 18 and then divided by 9. That is your P and Q. All right. So that is your P and Q. Okay. I hope you understand the overall questions here, because first of all, we have to do in terms of same denominator. We're going to make sure that it is same denominator to combine two terms into a single term. The next thing is to rationalize your equation. You want to perform conjugate. So conjugate, I want you to do it step by step. You don't have to rush. Do it one by one carefully, and you're going to end up with the correct answer. Okay, that is number 3. Okay, let me take some water first, because we're going to go into number 4 here. Alright, just to let you know, there is no video cutting in throughout my entire process of recording, because myself, I'm opening up this so-called Google Meet and I press the record button. I'm gonna do it in one shot. Alright, there's no video cutting, so bear with me if I have to drink water and then take some rest. Okay. And in the meantime, if you feel like you did learn something, do consider subscribe to the channel, because on and off I'm gonna post. In the future, I'm going to post more about learning videos in terms of chapters by topic. Okay, so let's continue question 4. Diagram 2 shows the triangle ABC. AR is actually parallel to PQ, and then it says given C to B is 6U, CA is 5B, and AR is 2 over 5 AB. Okay, and they want us to express in terms of U and V. Okay, so for AB, right? Okay, for AB, this is actually A to C plus C to B. Okay, A to C plus C to B. But then, right, before I actually start engage with the question, I would always write down my information first. For example, I have C to B. C to B is 6U, given from the question. And then I also have CA. Okay, CA is 5V. Okay, so we have that. Okay, what else do we have? We have AR is 2 over 5 AB. So I want to teach you all, I want to share with you all how to actually interpret this kind of information here, ratio, right? Because most students might start at this one as well. So it's pretty easy. You want to move this AB, right, to the left. So you make it this way. AR over AB is 2 over 5. So you see, AB is 5, AR is 2. That means, right, the entire line here stands for ratio in 5. AR is actually ratio 2. A to R alone is 2. So that means R to B is 3, because 5 minus 2 is 3. So that is how you want to interpret your questions. Okay. And to get our AC and CB, A to C means you are going in opposite direction, right? You are going in opposite direction. So your AB, if I write it here, AC plus C to B, right? So AC, since you are going in opposite direction, you want to do negative 5B here. And then C to B alone will be 6U, straight away from the question. Okay, next one. This is for 1. And next one is CR. Okay, CR. So how do you actually get from C to R then? Right, if you want to get C to R, right, I think the most possible way is you want to go from C to A and then A to R. Okay, C to A and then A to R. So we write it down first. C to A plus A to R. Alright, so what do we do with C to A and then AR? C to A means we are going with 5V here. Okay, and then AR, right? See, AR, it's 2 over 5 AB. So you write it down 2 over 5 AB. Okay, and then you want to translate what is AB. Okay, so this is 5V plus 2 over 5. Okay, what is your AB now? AB, right, you have to think of a way. To get my AB, I have to go from A to C and then C to B, right? So this is actually A to C plus C to B. So ask yourself, what is AC? AC is moving opposite direction for the 5B. So this is negative 5B. and then from C to B is positive 6u. So that is how you want to do it. Next up, we will expand the equation. Okay, so this is 5v minus 2v, and then plus this one will be 12 over 5u. Okay, so if you do 5 minus 2, you get 3v, 3v plus 12 over 5u. And that is the end for A1 and 2, right? A, B, and C, R. Okay, consider take some time to write it down for A1 and 2. Okay, let's move on with B1 then. B1, it says given that U is 5i and B is I plus 4j, find what is this? This is actually magnitude, okay? So you want to calculate the magnitude of CR, okay? The magnitude of CR. So what you want to do here first is writing down B1. Okay, we write down CR. Okay, we want to know that what is actually the CR vector first. So CR that we get is actually this one, 3v plus 12 over 5u. And they also give us the u and v vector. So we want to replace that v and u here. 3 times 5i plus 12 over 5 times I plus 4j. So when you expand this out, you get 15i plus, this is 12 over 5i, and then this is so-called 12 times 4 and then over 5. All right, let's do this by calculator. 12 times 4, we get 48 divided by 5. So 48 over 5j. Okay, hopefully we don't miss out anything. So the next thing is our calculation will be 15. This is 15, yeah? Let me just double check. Oh, okay, I know what I messed up here. So sorry, because this is v and this is u, right? So this is going to be the other side, the opposite side. 3 times v. v is I plus 4j. And then this is 12 over 5 times the 5i. Okay, this one looks better. So 3i plus 12j plus 5 and 5 cancel. You got 12i. Okay, so 3 plus 12, you got 15i plus 12j. Okay, the magnitude of CR is you're going to perform square root of, this is your x value, this is your y value. So x squared, 15 squared, and y squared. That's how you're going to perform your magnitude calculation. So square root of 15 squared plus 12 squared, you get 3 third 41 units. 3 thirds 41 units. Okay, you want to write it in decimals is also fine. Let me just help you get the decimal answer here. It will be 19.21 units. Okay, and that is for B1s. That is for B1. Okay, so we are done with the B1. Now I'm going to explain to you in depth for B2 because I think this is where most students stuck in B2, right? I mean, they wouldn't know what is shortest distance, and if they are area, then how do we do that? Especially they only give us ratio. Okay, for B number 2, right? Hence, find the shortest distance from point A to the straight line CR if the area CPQ is 40 over 3 units squared and CQ to QR it's 1:2. Okay, first of all, what is shortest distance from point A to straight line CR first? Let me put this into a picture so that you are clear on what you are looking at. Okay, I'm going to recreate the triangle here, A, C, and R. So the A, C, and R looks something like this, right? This is your A, C, and R. The shortest distance from A to CR, right, will be this line, and it forms a 90 degree. It forms a 90 degree. Maybe this is not perpendicular enough. Let me just draw it this way. Okay, it's a 90 degree here from A to CR. Okay, so that means, right, we have to get this distance in order to answer B2 question. Okay, so how do we do that? Let me write down the area of CPQ is given 40 over 3, right? 40 over 3. And they say CQ ratio QR is 1 to 2. And you might wonder what does it has to do with the Q, right? So Q is here. Okay, let me just put it back here. Let's say this is Q. So they say CQ it's 1 in ratio, QR is 2 in ratio according to our information given here, right? Okay, I want to ask you a question. If C to Q is 1, Q to R is 2, right? Then CR in total will be how many in ratio? 3, right? 3, right? Okay, so what we could assume is, okay, your area of CPQ, okay, CPQ, all right, there's another P here at the top if I'm not mistaken. There's a P here and then connecting to the Q. So it actually forms a mini triangle here, area of CPQ over area of, okay, I'm going to write this area of ACR, which is the larger triangle here, the full picture of triangle. So there is a large triangle and there is a mini triangle. Okay, now we write down here area of CPQ, right, over area of ACR is ratio 1 over 3. Is ratio 1 over 3. Alright, this is what we have learned from the diagram also. Right, area of CPQ over area of ACR, it's 1 to 3. So once I did that, I would replace this with the value that I got, 40 over 3. And my area of ACR is unknown. I'm going to assume as X. And I'm going to find out what is the actual area of ACR, which is the full triangle. So from this way, we can actually do cross multiplication. So next step is x times 1 is x, 40 over 3 times 3. Okay, 40 over 3 times 3, you end up with 40. So that means your area of ACR is 40 units squared. That is your area of ACR triangle. Okay, let's just write it down again. Let me just pull this information a bit upwards. I'm going to use blue color. Area of ACR is 40 units squared. And what does it have to do with calculating the shortest distance? Okay, we all knew that the area of triangle, right, is 1 over 2 base times height, right? And the height alone is the shortest distance of the entire triangle ACR. So I'm going to form this equation, 1 over 2 times, all right, CR times the height. The height is exactly the shortest distance that we are looking for, equal to 40. Okay, then what is my CR? Okay, good news is you have just found your CR here, 3 sub 41. So 1 over 2 times 3 sub 41 times h equal to 40. H is actually 40. You want to divide by 1 over 2 times 3 sub 41. And you want to end up with the answer 4.165 units. And that is how you solve B2. Okay, that is how you solve B2. So you can actually accumulate experience in terms of whenever they give you a ratio, most likely you can differentiate between a mini size of triangle and a larger size of triangle, and you want to put that in a ratio way, and then only you replace that with any value that is relevant. For example, in this case, they are talking about area, so you want to do everything in terms of area. Okay. All right, so that is B2 here. We are done with B2. Let's move on to question 5. Question 5 is all about Form 5 Chapter 2, right? Form 5 Chapter 2. Okay, let's go. A curve has a gradient of dy dx equal to 4x minus 6 and passes through P, 1 and 4. Okay, find the equation of the curve. Alright, if you want to get equation of the curve, this one you have to do with pengambilan, which is integration. Okay, integrate what? Integrate the dy dx, which is gradient function. So my very first step A is integrate dy dx. So when you integrate the dy dx, which is 4x minus 6 dx, you will end up with the y at the front, okay, at the back here plus c. Now you want to perform your integration. Just go back to the basic. So integration means your x power plus 1, it become 2, divide by 2 then, because it's a new index, you want to divide by the new number here. And then minus the 6 without x, you want to add an x to it, and then plus c. Okay, so 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now you get 2x squared, sorry, this is minus 6x plus c. So y equal to 2x squared minus 6x plus c, but we are not done yet because your c is not known yet. So it says the curve passes through 1, 4. You want to perform this when 1, 4. So 4 equal to 2 bracket 1 square minus 6 times 1 plus c. Go and get your c. Move everything here to the left. This is 4 minus 2, and then this is plus 6 equal to c. So c is 8. So that means your curve equation 2x squared minus 6x plus 8. And that will be your equation of the curve. Okay, that will be your equation of the curve. Okay, A is done. Let's look at B. The normal to the curve at point P, right, intersects the curve again at point Q. Find the coordinates of Q. Okay, interesting. Now, what the question says, right, is if you're confused, I suggest you to draw the diagram to make it visual. All right, visualize the question. The normal to the curve at point P intersect the curve again at point Q. How does that make sense? So over here, okay, let's say this is point P, and my P coordinate is 1, 4. Okay, my P coordinate is 1, 4, and they say the normal to the curve at point P. So that means there is a 90-degree line that actually cuts through point P. This is normal at point P, right? Okay. Now, with this in mind, okay, how do we get coordinates Q? We started with finding the gradient of the blue color line, right? Finding the blue color line's gradient. So how do we do that? We write it down, dy dx, okay? The question dy dx gave us 4x minus 6 because this is actually the gradient, right? Dy dx is a gradient equation. So when your x is equal to 1, dy dx is 4 times 1 minus 6. And you're going to end up with negative 2. So that means the blue color line here, sorry, the blue line has a gradient of negative 2. And your normal line, right, has a characteristic of 90 degrees. So if you want to get the gradient of the normal line, okay, you have to input the concept of n1, n2 equal negative 1. You learned this in Form 4, Chapter 7, Coordinate Geometry. You learned this before. So M2 is my red color line here. Okay, just to be clear, let me use the red color pen. M2 is my perpendicular line gradient. And then negative 1, bring the M1 to the right. M1 is your blue color line gradient, negative 2. So divide by negative 2, you get 1 over 2. Now you understand that the normal line gradient is 1 over 2. Is 1 over 2. But some student might ask, teacher or sir, what does it have to do with the gradient and the coordinates Q? Of course, it's very important because right now, right, you're going to form an equation for the normal line. So let's do y minus y1 equal to m bracket x minus x1. Okay, Now, this equation is the equation of this line, okay? So y minus, make sure your y1 and x1 uses the coordinate that it passes through. So this is 4, and the gradient is 1 over 2, and then x minus 1. So y equal to 1 over 2x, expand this, and then bring this over. 1 over 2x, negative 1 over 2 plus 4, okay, you get positive 7 over 2. Okay, here comes, right? So y equal to 1 over 2x plus 7 over 2. What does this has to do with the coordinates q? If you read carefully, the normal to the curve at point P intersect the curve again at point Q. Intersect the curve means, right, my equation of this line, it touches or cross over with the curve equation that I just found. So to get my q coordinates, it is very important for me to do this step. Y equal to y. This y is the normal line, y, and this y is my curve y. So this one would actually means they intersect. So I make sure my working steps, my jalan kira, align with what the question says. So y equal to y means I can write it here. 1 over 2x plus 7 over 2 equal to 2x squared minus 6x plus 8. Okay, once I did that, right, I try to rearrange this into general form because there is x squared here. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a quadratic equation. So right now, what I want to do is to move, or you can actually consider to multiply 2 to full equation. Okay, multiply by 2. So once you multiply 2, you get this is x, 7, 4x squared, 12x, and 16. Okay, move this to the right. 0 equal to 4x squared minus x minus 12x minus 7 plus 16. So your equation will be 4x squared. This is minus 13x. Negative 7 plus 16 is plus 9. Now you get a quadratic equation. With this quadratic equation, key in your a is 4, b is 13 negative, and c is 9. So you're going to get two answers, 9 over 4 and 1. So this is 4x minus 9, x minus 1. Okay, so just now, right, you see x minus 1, x equal to 1, right, it's already happened to be at coordinate p here. So for the coordinates q, right, that means my qx value will surely be this 9 over 4. So I'm going to write it down when x equal to 9 over 4. Put it back into the normal equation. So 1 over 2 bracket 9 over 4 plus 7 over 2. I get 37 over 8. So my q coordinate is 9 over 4, 37 over 8. And that is how you get the coordinates q. Okay, that is how you're going to get your coordinate q. All right, job done, job done. Okay, let me take some water because we have 6 and 7 to go. Okay, this is also another 7 marks. Let's move on. 6 and 7. So we look at 6 first. Table 1 shows the categorized for body mass index of a group of male workers in a company. The body mass index is normally distributed. Okay, it doesn't give us mean and standard deviation, okay? And it says it is given that 44% of the workers are categorized as either underweight or normal weight, while 12% were categorized as obese. It is found that 1 out of n of workers, right, were in the underweight category. Find the value of n. Okay, now this question seems like they asked for the n value, and if we were to form an equation, right, this will be the final equation. Px, because underweight category, I'm going to refer to this, less than 18.5 equal to 1 over n. All right, this is what I know from the question. But right, the thing is, I don't have any mean and standard deviation for me to actually get the n value here. Because you understand, if you do much about this topic, right, you will notice you have to convert this into z-score, right? And the z-score will involve your mean and standard deviation. But without that, you wouldn't even get close to n value. So the very first thing is you have to go and find mean and standard deviation. That is why the full question costs 6 marks. Okay, which is require much more working steps here. So what do we do with the questions to find mean and standard deviation? We can actually consider reread the question again. It is given 44%. 44% of the workers categorized under underweight and normal weights. Okay, from this statement alone, right, we can consider form an equation, underweight and normal weight. Okay, we can create an equation whereby P x less than 25 is equal to 0.44. Okay, 0.44 comes from 44%. All right, because percent means per 100. So 44 per 100 is 0.44. I hope you understand that. All right. Next thing, you want to convert this into z-score. So z less than 25 minus mean over standard deviation equal to 0.44. And usually I will encourage my student to sketch the diagram. Okay. So this will be a negative z-score, and the region that they refers to is here. Okay, it's less than 0.44. I mean less than the region which is happen to be here. Okay, then the next thing is, the next thing is you want to go and look for 0.44. What is the corresponding z-score? All right, because this is probability, right? Probability. So you want to look for the z-score. Okay, I have a chart over here. I have a chart over here. So let's look for 0.44. 0.44. 0.44. Okay, here. Let me just highlight this row first. Okay, I notice this is the closest to 0.44, but it has a 0.4 at the back, like 0.4404. So I want to get accurate 0.44, I will have to take away another 0.0004. Okay, so this one will help me get me, will get me 0.4404 minus 0.0004, which end up at 0.44. This is what we want. So my z-score will be 0.151. 0.151. So let's put down the value here, 0.151. But do take note, you have to include a negative sign at the front, because based on this probability, right, and based on the inequality sign, the z-score exists on your left hand side. Or you can memorize this, z less than n, any z-score less than n, and the probability less than 0.5, it's going to be on your left hand side. So when you have anything left side, you will include a negative sign in your z-score. So you knew that this thing, right, is actually coming from this equation. Because technically, every time when we do the question, we would always, we will always go and calculate, 25 minus mean, and then divide by standard deviation, and then we get a z-score. And then we're going to use this z-score to find the probability in the chart that we used just now. So right now, it's like a reverse engineering process, okay, to get it, the z-score, and then to find the inner element of the z-score equation, which is mean and standard deviation. But of course, right now we have two unknown, so most likely we'll have to form two equations to get the mean and standard deviation. So what I can do here is I will move this to the right. 25 minus mean equal to negative 0.151, and this is standard deviation. Okay, and that will be my first equation. Okay, second equation is we can form based on 12% categorized as obese. Okay, understand. Let's go and check for obese first. Obese means the x is greater or equal to 30. Okay. So let's write down greater or equal to 30. And then this is 12%, right? So we write down 0.12. I hope you understand now why this is 0.12. And then we're going to convert this into z-score. 30 minus mean over standard deviation equal to 0.12. Okay, again, I want you to sketch the diagram. Okay, the diagram here, 0.12 greater than this region, alright? So this is a positive z-score, 0.12, greater or equal to. Alright, so right now, our job is go and find out what is the z-score for 0.12 probability. Okay, let me use a different color here. 0.12, 0.12. Okay, around here. Let me highlight this full row. 0.12. Let's go with this. Okay, so I have a balance of 10 here. I'm going to deduct the 10 here. So that means I'm taking this number as well. Okay, so that means my z-score will be 1.175 in order to get exact probability 0.12. Okay, so let me write down 1.175, and we do not need to include negative sign because it happens to be at your positive side. And then you want to write down the equation. Move this to the right. There you go. You have your second equation now. So what do we do with this 1 and 2 equation? You can consider do 2 minus 1. So 2 minus 1 means 30 minus mean equal to 1.175 standard deviation minus 25 minus mu equal to negative 0.151 standard deviation. Okay, 30 minus 25, you get how much? You get 5, right? And then negative mu, negative mean positive. So negative mu plus mu, no more. And then at the back side here, this is 1.175 mu. This is minus, you get positive. So 1.175 plus 0.151, you get 1.326. Okay, so now you get this equation. If you want to get your standard deviation, you just have to move this to the left. So 5 divided by 1.326 equal to mu. Mu is actually 3.771. When the standard deviation is 3.771, and then you want to replace this into either of the equation 1 or 2 also can. Okay, let's just do equation 2. 30 minus mu equal to 1.175 times 3.771. Okay, this one to the right, this to the left. 30 minus 3.771 equal to mu. So mu is equal to 25.57, which is the mean. So now we got our mean is 25.57, and we also has the standard deviation, which is 3.771. With these two value, we want to go back to our final boss equation, which is px less than 18.5 equal to 1 over n. Okay, let's do that. Let me use purple color. Px less than 18.5 equal to 1 over n. So z-score 18.5 minus the mean 25.57 divided by 3.771. Okay, with that, we're gonna end up with a negative z-score here. I think it's negative 1.875. Okay, right now we're gonna take the so-called the value here, which is z-score, right, and go and refer to the chart. So before that, right, I also encourage my student to sketch it out. roughly. Okay, because you already knew that your z-score is at negative side. So let's just assume it's going to be around here then. Okay, less than sign, so less than. Okay, let's go and look for the probability here. Let me use a different color now. I'm going to use, let's say, green. So 1.875 is this 1.87, which is this row. Okay, I got this value 0.0307, and then we have another 5 which we have to deduct. Okay, so we have to deduct this 4 here, so that means my equation will be 0.0307 minus 0.0004, and then equal it to this, the probability. So this one, your calculation should be 0.0303 equal to 1 over n. You switch the n and the 0.0303, your n will be 1 over 0.0303. And then you're going to end up with answer 33. So that is your n value. Okay, 6 mark in total. I knew this is kind of like a whole lot of process, but yeah, that's the overall question. That's the overall question idea. They don't give you mean, they don't give you standard deviation. They want you to work out 2 equations to get those 2 before you can actually solve the question directly, which is to get the value of n. Okay, and that is the overall explanation for question, what is this, question 6. Oh my god, we are finally at question 6. Now we are moving on to, I think, the most controversial question among SPM 2024, where they talk about the question about marble. All right, let's go into the 10 marks question, which is something related to your form 4 chapter 5 progression. Okay, well, if you stay by from the first question all the way to question 7, we are already in an hour more, so I hope you also get some rest if you need it. Okay, make sure to, you want to treat this video as something that you really learn something. You don't want to in rush, to jot down every answers. All right, okay, let's read the question together. Diagram 3 shows a symmetrical tube such that point A and B are on the same level. A marble is released from point A and moved through the tube towards point B until it stops instantaneously for the first time at point C. The marble will move back and forth through the tube until it stops completely at point O. The marble stops instantaneously for the second time at point D and stops instantaneously for the third time at point E. The distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C to point D, and subsequent distance are in the same ratio. Now, this same ratio, these 2 words alone, right, give me a big hint about the type of progression. This is going to be geometric progression. Okay, this is going to be geometric progression. So every brain cell that you have, right, will wire towards the formulas that you use in geometric progression. Okay, then let's move on to the actual question here. So the total distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C and then from point C to point D, right, is 629 over 4 cm. The distance traveled from point B to point E is 4,913 over 80 cm. If the marble takes 1 minute to stop completely at point O, determine whether the average speed of the marble exceeds 10 cm per second or not. Show your calculation. Right? So you see, now in the end of the question, right, what we need is to determine whether the average speed exceeds 10 cm per second or not. And if you think closely, average speed is something that you learned before in your maths. Average speed can be calculated using total distance divided by total time. I repeat that again. Total distance divided by total time. Okay, so what we have now is actually the time already, because they ask us to calculate it says 1 minute to stop completely at point O. So we have the total time already, right? We just need to look for total distance, all right? Total distance travel. But how? Okay. So let's write down some of the information that we know first. The T1, right, is actually from point A going to point C. Your T2, right, is point C to D. Your T3, right, is D to E. Okay, because this is basically what they mentioned in the question. A to C. Yeah, they make it sounds confusing because it says like A to B and then it drop down to C, right? But indirectly they are telling you it's A to C. You just ignore that noise, okay? So this is A to C. This is A to C. Okay, the next thing is, right, you see from the information it says from point A to point C, right, the total distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C and then from point C to point D is 629 over 4. So that means T1 plus T2 itself is already 629 over 4. 629 over 4. That will be the first equation that you can form. And T1 and T2, right, if you still remember in GP, we use the formula ARN minus 1. So T1 is A, T2 is AR. So A plus AR is 629 over 4, right? A plus AR is 629 over 4. That could be one of the most important equation that you have to form, okay? Of course, A, you got to factor it out. You get A bracket 1 plus R equal to 629 over 4, okay? And let's just assume this as equation 1, all right? Equation 1 done. Next, they say the distance traveled from point D to point A is 4913 over 80. From point D to E, right, is actually your third term. So T3, 4913 over 80. What is T3? T3 is actually AR power 2. So AR power 2 is 4913 over 80. Okay, and that will be our equation 2. So with these two equations, we will go and look for the A value and the R value, which is the common ratio and the first term. So let's do 2 divided by 1, the second equation divided by the first equation. And that means you're going to take AR squared divided by A bracket 1 plus R. And then 4913 over 80 divided by 629 over 4. So this is so-called working step that will lead us to get A and R before we can actually get the total distance. Okay, we don't bother about total distance first, but we have to get our A and R first. Okay, so 4913 over 80 divided by 629 over 4, right? You will end up with an answer. I think it's, hold on, let me just double check with my calculator. 4913 over 80 and then 629 over 4. 289740. 740. And then on your left hand side, the A and A can be cancelled. So you will only left with R squared over 1 plus R. And then you want to do cross multiplication here. Okay, so the cross multiplication here, you will get 740 R squared equal to 289 bracket 1 plus R. Expand this out. 289 plus 289R 740R squared. Let's continue here. Make it into quadratic general form. So minus 289R minus 289 equal to 0. Okay, and then you're going to use your Mr. Calculator to key in your A, B, and C value. 740, negative 289, negative 289. You're going to get two R answer here. The first R is 17 over 20. The second R is negative 17 over 37. So this is 20R minus 17. And this will be 37R plus 17 equal it to 0. Okay. And most likely we have to reject the R because we don't take the negative ratios in this case. So this is going to be ignored, or in Malay just abaikan. And then we're going to proceed with our calculation A. When R is 17 over 20, we take our A as 1 plus 17 over 20 equal to 629 over 4. I am putting back into the first equation here. I am putting back into the first equation. So A will be 629 over 4 divided by 1 plus 17 over 20. Okay, and there we go. We got our A value. It's 85. Okay, 85. So we have done it all the way from getting R value, common ratio, and the A value. Now the next step is, how do we get the total distance here? Okay, how do we get the total distance? Because we have to calculate A to C, and then C to D, and then D to E. So it's gonna go in the same process, same pattern until 1 minute. Okay, but if I tell you it stops at 1 minute, how would you know it ends at which term? Because you can't judge when it will end, because all this while it's going to base on your forces as well. I mean, how hard you actually pushes the marble, or you just let it slide by its own. So this is not, there's no proper way for us to judge that it's going to end at which particular term, or there is no proper threshold for us to calculate their actual total distance travel. So in such case, right, you could only do one kind of formula, which is sum to infinity, because sum to infinity will be able to give you a limit, as in what is the possible total distance travel that they could achieve. Okay, sum to infinity. So let's do sum to infinity to get the total distance travel. Again, I repeat, in this case, we couldn't find any exact sum of the number of terms because we couldn't judge. In 1 minute, sometimes you may get like 30 terms, 20 terms. In 1 minute, it could be also be just 10 terms. So it really depends on the bowl. What is it? Is this a bowl? Yeah, whatever. It looks like a ball, alright. Then they just leave it the marble, just swing left and right. Okay. So there's no way for us to judge. So sum to infinity, it's A over 1 minus R. Your A value is 85. 1 minus R value is 17 over 20. So the calculation here gave you the answer is 1700 over 3 cm. Alright, this is the total distance traveled estimated through the formula of sum to infinity. So 1700 divided by 3, how much is that? That's around 566.67. 566.67. Okay. So if we want to answer the question, average speed, we gotta get back to the formula total distance divided by total time. Okay. So I'm gonna write it down here. Total distance is 1700 over 3 divided by total time. Now, total time, right, they give us is 1 minute. 1 minute to stop completely at point O. But if you notice, right, they are asking you in terms of cm per second. You want to convert this minute into second, because that is also what you did in your maths. You want to make sure that the unit are the same before you make any operation or calculation. So 1 minute, if you convert to second, is 60 seconds. All right. From here, your calculation will give you 9.44 cm per second. So 9.44, does it exceed 10 cm? Obviously, the answer is not. So you can give them a conclusion. Sorry, this is a bit annoying. Let me just move down a bit. All right, so 9.44 does not exceed 10 cm per second. So the conclusion is, oh, I have nowhere to write. I'm gonna write here. The average speed of the marble does not exceed 10 cm per second. And that is how you secure your 10 marks. So the first thing, analyze term 1 is from which point to which point, followed by term 2 and term 3. And then all this while, they didn't give you first term, they didn't give you the so-called common ratio. They asked for average speed. Average speed in your mind is actually total distance divided by total time. Time is given, the total time it takes for the marble to stop completely, but total distance is something that you gotta find through sum to infinity, which I think most of the students wouldn't think about that because they struggle to think of is there a specific n numbers, I mean the n term, for us to find like the sum of how many terms, because that is what we used to. So in this case, we also have to base on the validity of the questions to think of, is it suitable in this case to have n numbers for us to find sum of n terms? Because that might not be the case most of the time. I mean, that might not be the case in those like swinging kind of cases. Swings, right? It's really controversial in progression because you might get a lot of terms, you might get shorter terms in terms of n numbers. So you gotta be careful with that, right? But you always learn from the mistake and learn from experience. So I think if you've gone through these questions, you're gonna gain experience. And if you bump in again similar questions, you already have that mindset. Okay, and I think that is the end for the video. It takes like I think an hour, 1.5 hour long. This is the longest video that I ever made. So thank you very much for staying by. If you stay up to this point, do give yourself a good rest. I mean, thank you for staying by, and do remember to share with your friend if you find this helpful. This is Sir Jaden. Thank you for supporting the channel. I will see you again in another video. Bye bye.